I don't believe it, it's going to be a half-an-hour job this morning. Anyway, what I initially was had intended to talk about was what happens when you really have been brought up to believe that everything's your fault. And I have yet to meet anybody who, unless they've been through therapy, who was sexually or physically abused as a child, who does not believe it's their fault, or emotionally abused. And I have to say that of those three, it's the emotional abuse that's the worst. You know, the physical and sexual abuse is sort of fleeting. The fear involved isn't, but the pain of it is. But the emotional agony isn't. And, you know, people often say to me, oh, I didn't have a childhood like yours, you know, I hardly feel like I should moan. But I can tell that they've been horrendously emotionally abused, you know, by parents who say, look what you've done. Look at all the upset you've caused me. And worse. You know, they can make a child believe that they are completely responsible for the happiness of their parents. You're not. Parents are responsible for their own happiness. We all are. All of us adults. And it can make it very difficult. I mean, I've had friends, I mean, you've heard me write on my blog, or was it mentioned on here, I'm not too sure which, but anyway, I recently had a 30-year friendship end, and in a way that made me really angry, but not in a way that, I mean, I hardly think about it now. It comes up in my mind every now and then. And when I say every now and then, I mean every few days. I don't mean every day or even several times a day, which is a huge improvement, because in the past I would have obsessed about it and would have done everything I could to, well, this situation just wouldn't have arisen because I wouldn't have dared say no to them in the first place, which is why our friendship ended. I know it is. And I'm completely shocked that these two people are not the people I thought they were. But I guess I did actually know, and I knew years ago, but because of my training, I could not end the relationship. John wanted me to. John started to get really angry at the way they were treating us and the way that they took advantage of us, specifically took advantage of me. John had very little to do with them, except via me when we used to visit. And initially he thought what I thought about... Anyway. But you see, because of my training that I wasn't good enough and that everything was my fault, and because I had known this person for 30 years and they'd seen me go through and heard me go through some awful, awful stuff, and they were still there, I couldn't accept what my gut was telling me and what my intellect was telling me, because they were both telling me, you're being treated badly, Colin. They're taking advantage of you, Colin. And I got into such a tiz. And so consequently, you know, every time I visited them I felt really uncomfortable. I found phone calls difficult. But do you think I stopped making phone calls? No, I didn't. I made more. Because I was scared. Because what if I've made a mistake and they really are these wonderful people that I've always thought they were? You know, then I'm really a bad person for even thinking that there's something not right. That, I mean, how bad am I? They've been such good friends for so long. How bad am I for even thinking that they're taking advantage of me? But then I started to tell other people why I felt the way I felt. You know, that I had this suspicion. And, well, to them it wasn't a suspicion. It was very clear as soon as I opened my mouth and told what I was concerned about. But I still couldn't make the break. Well, I guess actually consciously I did. Because that weekend, when I told them no, I wasn't going to do something that they wanted, which was take my stud dog up there to their house, and I've never heard from them since. And needless to say, I didn't return the call. I mean, I didn't call them. There wasn't a call for me to return. I'd said no, and as far as I was concerned, a bitch was coming to me to be mated, but I never heard anything again, ever. And that's nearly 2 years ago now. And I feel fine, actually, about all this, because I feel freed of it. Because I no longer have to be questioning myself, you know, and having this bloody thing on my shoulder. You know, what do I do? Am I right? Am I wrong? See, the extremes of this are people who stay in relationships when they're getting beaten up. The extremes of this are people like me. I got away from home when I was 16, and I went back. Sometimes I find that's so shameful that I went back. But you see, I've been so fucked over that I couldn't possibly survive. And I still thought it was all me. And I kept thinking, you know, I spent all of my life, certainly all my childhood and teenage years, and right up until I cut them out of my life altogether, trying desperately to find the magic key that was going to make it okay. I would find what it was that I could correct about myself that would make my parents find me acceptable. And I never found it. No matter what I did, it made no difference whatsoever. But you see, I'd got out of home when I was 16, and I was back when I was 17. And then I was abandoned by them. They upped and left. Oh, they have all sorts of excuses for why they did what they did. You know, and I was left working in a bar till 3 o'clock at night and trying to fend for myself and do A-levels, on top of the fact that I was also really ill. It can make one very angry when you realise that you've wasted so much of your life believing it was all your fault. But you can change. You can really get to the point where you know for sure that it isn't your fault. And I'll tell you why. There is one simple explanation, I mean. And the trick is to feel this in your gut. But I'll tell you a secret. Other people treat you the way that they treat you, be it well or not well, because of who they are. It's got nothing to do with you. Has nothing at all to do with you. Hasn't got to do with whether you're a nice person or an unnice person. Nice people treat other people well, and horrible people don't. And it has bugger all to do with you. Those people who beat me, those people who sexually abused me, those people who called me names, those people who referred to me as shit, quite literally, verbally, that was my nickname. It wasn't because I was shit, it's because they were. It was always them. Always. I was 49 years old before I figured out that. And I've been free ever since. And people have noticed. Certainly they've noticed a change in the way that I dress. Can you see all those boots? Oh, did you see my nice shirt today? See? I would never have done this. Not ever. I wouldn't have done these video things either. But you see, I'm free. Because I now know that it was always them. How dare my parents expect to have something that they wanted instead of what they got? Because that's what it was all about. That's where the homophobia started, with my father, from as far back as I can remember. I wasn't good enough for them. They wanted a mail-order baby, and they got me instead. Well, guess what? They don't have me anymore, none of my family do, and they're the ones that missed out. Anyway, I'm off. I can't do more than 30.